Hi folks, you're with Taskless today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for joining this live chat. In this chat, I'd like to talk about wealthy white Westerners, Western people, and their attitudes to globalization, their hatred of other whites and of Trump and Trump voters, the sneering condescension of anybody that would oppose globalization or support Trump or support anyone that would oppose globalization in the political sphere. So let me talk about their attitudes, the sort of things they say, and my interpretation of what they're doing, because they don't seem to know what they're doing, but they're these people that fervently believe in something they know nothing about. So, but the wealth is one thing that comes across. It's the common factor here. It's unusual that so many people would hold exactly the same view who happen to be in the same class, but they do. So let's just talk a little bit about this. And it's going to sound like all I do is swan around with very rich people having lunch or dinner, and that's not the case, by the way. So this is something that's spread over a couple of years, I guess, in terms of multiple dinners and lunches. But these are people, just to sort of position the wealth, these are people who've got, say, a minimum house value of $3 million. And that's at kind of the lower end of the scale here. They all have water views, ocean views. They all have, they're in prestigious postcodes, as you can imagine, and they all drive. Even at the bottom end, you're talking $80,000-$90,000 for a car, and they've typically got 2 or 3 or more cars in the driveway. More than half of them have yachts and motor cruises, motor launches on the harbour, and just the monthly mooring fees alone are more than what the average wage would be. So their annual vacations aren't to the local trailer park, as you can imagine. They're to exotic international locations, and these people are not travelling coach. So it gives you an idea of the sort of wealth that we're dealing with. All of them have heated swimming pools, in-ground swimming pools, and ornate outdoor areas done in sandstone with the statues and the whole 9 yards. So that's the sort of folks that we're talking about here. Now, I should say that none of them have actually made their own money. They've either inherited a lot of money, or they're part of the upper socialite class, and they gift each other prestigious jobs, and so they've received prestigious jobs that could be, say, at the very senior levels of the public service or indeed the private sector. So we're talking, at the very low end of the income scale here, for those that even need to work. We're talking probably around $500,000 a year income, and then it goes up from there. Their wives are gifted as prestigious sort of positions as president of the local art society or the local art gallery and that sort of thing. So those are sort of people we're talking about here. But they put on a good lunch. There's no takeout burgers and fries at the lunches these guys put on, and so it's always a pleasure there. And the wines that they put on the table, these are definitely the wines that a connoisseur would select. And if anything, and these are pleasant, charming people in so many ways. They're polite and they're kind and certainly, by my assessment, generous and very welcoming, and all these sorts of things. And they make good company. They're nice people to talk to and chat to and have a glass of wine with and have some food. And when we end up going to these, I always look forward to it. So I'm not talking unpleasant, nasty, vindictive people, or certainly not that I've noticed or seen. Not that there won't be ones that fit that category, but not the people that I've come across. So So anyway, that gives you a bit of background. But when the discussion, certainly over the last few years, when the discussion comes to what's happening in the US and so on, and I don't need to, we don't need to raise Trump. They'll go straight for it. And one of the first things they want to talk about is how terrible Trump is. He is so bad. He's a Nazi. He's a fascist. He's a this. He's a that. Just about every put down you can imagine they attribute to Trump. None of these put downs are put to Biden, by the way, or Obama or any of those outrageous race hustlers. Instead, it's all Trump who's the bad guy. Now, typically, their understanding of the situation is pretty shallow. That they really, if you look at the thread of how they put these Trump hatred things out, they're really just the talking points that they're getting off CNN and MSNBC and that sort of thing. They're not comprehending what's going on. And you think, these people they've all been to very good schools and colleges, so that theoretically at least they'd have the education and the reasoning power to deduce what's going on, but they don't want to. They seem to have no motivation at all. It's very cool, and they're in with the right set. They're saying the right things and believing the right, or pretending to believe the right things by saying that Trump's an idiot and a Nazi and whatnot. So, and they're not prepared to accept any alternative point of view. So that rigidity of position with shallow understanding suggests that it's an ideological thing rather than that they actually know what they're talking about. But just with it generally sort of talking to, and sitting next to your classic sort of rich lady, rich suburb, all she does is go to the tennis club and go to the yoga classes and find some new brand of organic food to buy or something like that. So that's really all. She never had to worry about money. Their footprint, carbon footprint in terms of electricity consumption, they consume more in a month than most households will consume in a year or 2 years. So they talk it, but they don't walk the walk. But nonetheless, again, very pleasant lady, and just sitting next to her at one of the lunches, and she says, Trump's terrible. He's a Nazi. And how is he a Nazi? Well, he just is. Sure, okay, no, I get that. I pretend that I don't know anything about it. Can she enlighten me and tell me and give me all this dirt on the Nazi stuff and the fascists and everything? And she can't. She just doesn't know. She maybe remembers a CNN talking point that she comes out with. So I might mention, well, I heard that he wanted to stop Middle Eastern wars and pointless Middle Eastern wars when Americans are dying and Australians are dying, and he wants to stop the sending of Western jobs over to places like China and so on. But that's that's a good thing, isn't it? That just seemed to me to be good. No, that's just another thing that Nazis do. Right? They stop pointless foreign wars where people are dying. Nazis do that. Wow. Oh, well, it's Trump's just bad, and then we don't have to go into the details. We don't need to know what he just is, and that's it. And you have to be fairly gentle here, because if you try and sort of seem like you're sticking up for Trump or sticking up for things like not sending American jobs offshore to China, if you then you'll be under suspicion, and maybe you won't get any more lunch invites. So you've got to be fairly careful and just to approach it carefully. But at one lunch, there was a rabid Trump hater, and he couldn't shut the fuck up. He just kept on going, and so he detected that I was more sympathetic to Trump than he was. He said, "Well, what is it? Why are you sympathetic?" I said, "Well, I mean." He wants to stop the wars. He wants to stop sending. It should only see, not that they're lower class or not that they're upper class or middle class or anything like that. That's a sneering contempt for those white people at the bottom. They don't have the same contempt for black people on the bottom rung, but it's only for white people. And they perceive that if anyone like a Donald Trump ever is electorally successful, then it must be those people that they hold in total contempt, the white people who would vote for a Trump because because they're Nazis in waiting and fascists anyway. So that's why they would do it, and that's their perception, which is of course quite absurd. But that's what they do. And talking to another about Biden winning the election. trying to point out, well, look, here's a senile guy who's been in hiding pretty much for the whole election campaign. He can barely put a sentence together without fucking it up. And yet we're to believe that he got the most votes in the history of president. Don't you find that just a little bit sort of, a little bit unusual? Aren't you just a little bit curious about it? Oh, no. Everyone hates Trump so much, they all voted for Biden. No, that's good. Biden's a great candidate. He's a goddamn genius. And they just won't accept anything other than Biden, some high-powered political and policy-making genius who legitimately won an election because he was so popular. And, and mentioning things like the closing down of the electoral counting during the election and mysteriously appearing bunches of hundreds of thousands of votes. Don't you find that just a little bit unusual? Isn't that something like, wouldn't you want to go through that to verify, to make sure it was a 100% legitimate election, a legitimate? Wouldn't anybody want to know that it was a legitimate? No, I don't. Trump lost, and that's good enough for me. Now, again, these are the richest people in the country. These people are in the richest one in every 250 people. So you think you'd get better out of them, but you didn't. And certainly I couldn't find any, and haven't come across any, that would have got even a single kind word to say about Trump. And if say you mentioned things about how some of the senior public servants were deliberately undermining him and doing everything they could to disrupt his agenda or spot a walkout and that sort of stuff, then they come back saying, well, no, that's fine. It's illegal if they do it to Obama, but it's 100% good if they do it to Trump. Rather than look at, well, do you want anybody running rogue in a system like that? Surely there should be accountability. And at one point I said, well, whatever you may think about Trump, the people of the United States have voted for him. They voted for him to be president. And whatever you think about it, whatever you think about whether he's good or bad or anything like that, he is the legitimately elected president of the United States. Just the office alone doesn't that deserve some sort of respect and recognition? But it is the people's choice. That's how democracy is meant to work. And they sort of hold back for a minute. Oh, well, one person around the table will go, no, I agree that the election of Trump was we have to respect that choice. Oh no, I don't see why we should respect their choice. All those redneck fascist Nazis have voted for him. No, it's not legitimate. Well, okay, what about Obama? What about hysterical blue-haired college kids that voted for Obama? That makes his election illegitimate. That doesn't. Oh no, not the same thing. So they run this double, triple standard that we've all seen in the media and so on. That's hardly new. But that's it, and that's my take from attending many of these lunches and dinners and so on. And again, I have to keep pretty quiet or be quite careful what I say. I think it's that they've worked out that I'm not as anti-Trump as they are, but they probably haven't quite understood that I'm sympathetic towards not per se Trump, but for the things that he stood for. America first, that sort of thing. Now that's directly against the globalist agenda, which is why they viciously attacked him non-stop for 4 years. But nonetheless, that's my take on it all. So you've been with Tastis today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.